In this section, we're going to look at some applications of our linear equations. We're going to start with an application that you're probably quite familiar with, and that is the application for simple interest. So, as you might recall, we have a formula for simple interest, and that formula looks like I is equal to P times R times T. And you want to remember that P is the principal, which is either the amount that you borrow or the amount that you invest. R is the interest rate, and it should always be written as a decimal. And T is the time, and the time should be written in terms of years. So let's begin with an example. Suppose that Jane borrows $500 for 6 months at a simple interest rate of 9% per year. We want to find the interest that Jane will be charged on this loan, and we also want to find how much she owes after 6 months. So let's begin by identifying our values and determining what letters in the equation they are. So I see that I have 500. Note that that's the amount that she borrowed. So that's going to be the P value. Remember, P is your principal. That is either the amount you borrow or the amount you invest. We also know that she's making this loan for 6 months. So that's going to be my time. Now remember that time needs to be in terms of years. So what I'm going to do is take the 6 months and put it over 12 because there are 12 months in 1 year. So that tells me that my time is going to be 1/2, which makes sense because we know that 6 months is 1/2 of a year. We have 9%, which is our interest rate. So that's going to be our R. Remember that it has to be written in terms of a decimal. To change a percent to a decimal, remember that you're going to move your decimal place 2 places to the left. And so our interest rate will be 0.09. Once we determine all of our letters, we're then going to go into our formula and plug in. So remember our formula says P times R times T equals the interest. And so I'll plug in my values. For the principal, we're going to plug in the 500. For the interest rate, we'll plug in 0.09. And for the time, we'll plug in 1/2, or you could plug in 0.5. So I'm now going to multiply these 3 terms together. So 500 times 0.09 times 1/2. And that should give you $22.50. So our first question asking us how much interest she's going to be charged on the loan, we now know that that's going to be $22.50. And then the next question is how much does she owe after 6 months? Well, we know at the end of the loan she's going to have to pay back the $500 that she borrowed. And on top of that, or in addition to, she's going to have to pay the interest on that loan. So the total amount that she'll be paying back is $522.50. Now, this is a simple application for our simple interest problem. We want to look at a couple of examples that are maybe a little bit more involved than this first one. So in this case, we're told that Helen borrowed $8,000 from her grandfather to pay for college. 5 years later, she paid him back the $8,000 and an interest of $1,200. What was the annual interest rate? So again, let's look at our numbers and designate them as letters in the formula. So we know that she borrowed $8,000. So the $8,000 is going to be our principal. Remember, principal is the amount that you borrow or the amount that you invest. We're told that 5 years later, so now we have our time. Remember, time needs to be in terms of years, which it is here. She paid him back the $8,000 and an interest of $1,200. So we know that the interest that was paid back was $1,200. The question is asking what was the annual interest rate? And so the R is what we're looking for in this case. So I can go ahead and set up my formula, keeping in mind that the formula is I is equal to P times R times T. So let's plug in what we know. So I'm going to plug in the 1,200 for the I, the 8,000 for the P. We're still looking for R, and we know that the time is 5. And so now we have a linear equation that we need to solve for R. So I'm going to begin by multiplying the 8,000 times the 5. So 8,000 times 5 is going to give me 40,000. And I still have the R. I want to solve now for the R. And so I need to get rid of the 40,000. The 40,000 is currently multiplied by the R, so I'm going to undo that by dividing. And I'm going to divide on both sides by that 40,000. That'll cause it to cancel on the right. So we'll be left with R is equal to, and then I'm going to divide 1,200 divided by 40,000. That gives me 0.03. And remember that your interest rate is always written as a percentage. So changing that decimal to a percent will move that decimal place 2 places to the right. And so our interest rate that was charged was 3%. Our final example says that Margaret's car loan statement said that she would pay $7,683.20 in interest for a 5-year loan at an interest rate of 9.8%. We're going to assume that this is an example of simple interest, and the question is asking me how much did she borrow to buy the car? So again, let's take a look at what we have. So we're told that the interest is $7,683.20. So I know that that's the I. We're told that the loan is for 5 years, so that's going to be my time. And we're told that the interest rate is 9.8%. So as a decimal, 9.8% is going to be 0.098. And we want to know how much did she borrow for the car. And so the only thing that's left in our formula is the principal. So we need to know how much that car initially cost. So again, we'll set up using our formula. I is equal to P times R times T, and we'll plug in what we know. So I'm going to plug in the 7683.20 for the I. We know that we're looking for the P, so we'll leave that in. The interest rate is 0.098, and the time is 5 years. So again, I'm going to begin by simplifying on the right. We're going to multiply 0.098 times 5, and that's going to give me 0.49, and we still have the P. On the left side, we'll just rewrite. Our job here is to solve for the principal. So we now need to divide both sides by 0.49. That will cause it to cancel. And when I type that in my calculator, 7683.20 divided by 0.49, we get a principal value of $15,680. And so that is the amount that she used to borrow for the car.